My name is Bryce, and I'm here today to tell you why lying is an immoral action and what makes it wrong nearly 100% of the time. So I want you to think back to a time when you told a lie. What were the reasons you told that lie? What were the effects of your lie? What were the circumstances surrounding your lie? Were you trying to protect someone else? Were you trying to protect yourself? Were you being pressured into lying? Or were you afraid of what may happen if you told the truth? Ultimately, that's what it comes down to, many times. We often fear what would happen if we tell the truth. So, I'm going to tell you a little story. I remember a time when I was in middle school, and I told a lie. There was a student council election, and only 4 people could serve on the student council. And there were 7 candidates. My best friend was one of them, and I was another one. But I feared that I wouldn't be able to be elected if that many people were running. So in order to get elected, I lied to my best friend, and I told him all of the forms and the speeches, it's all due on Friday. When in fact, it was all due Thursday. So my friend was a bit of a procrastinator, and didn't get any of his stuff in on time. So he was cut from the election. But before the election could even occur, he found out that I lied to him, and he told the teachers. The teachers also disqualified me from the election. So I tried to lie for personal gain, and there was no payoff. It only brought further consequences upon myself. So I'm here today to tell you why fear is the leading cause of many of your lies. So, lying can be, first of all, lying is bad. And also, fear is the reason for your lies. I already told the story. So lying can be classified into 2 categories, white and strategic. Now we all know what white lies are. They're minor lies, just tiny sins. Usually you tell a white lie to avoid hurting someone's feelings. But strategic lies, those are much bigger. They are, in essence, strategic, and they're meant to achieve a purpose for, gain you an advantage. So, you can think of a white lie as lying to your mom saying, "Yep, I did my chores." And you can think of a strategic lie as, "No, I'm not having an affair." You can see that this one is very minor, and this one is very major. Both of them are very wrong. Although, these aren't a big deal, these are a big deal. But these still count. So, the church's stance on lying is, the 8th commandment. They preach that thou shalt not bear false witness. The church, the Catholic Church, this is, wants everyone to tell the truth for the purpose of spreading the truth. They want the message of Jesus Christ to be preached and not other stuff or lies. So, it is best that we follow the 8th commandment. Now, I want you to think back to strategic lies, the big deal kind of lies. Who do you think are good strategic liars, or what kind of people? I can almost guarantee that you're probably thinking politicians. And yes, oftentimes politicians are very good strategic liars. Now, not all of them are liars, but in many circumstances, politicians do lie for the purpose of seeming more appealing. So let's say we have a imaginary politician. Let's call him Paul. Now, Paul is running for the President of the United States, and Paul wants to get elected because, he wants to be famous. But Paul doesn't know how he can do this, so he comes up with a campaign issue. He decides, I'm going to tell everyone that I can cut back taxes. So, Paul goes out and tells everyone, I'm going to cut back taxes. But Paul knows deep down inside that he's not going to be able to cut back taxes. So, in lying to people, he's trying to avoid telling the truth, because he knows that if he tells the truth, he's not going to have as much support. But if people find out that he's lying to them, this is just going to bring upon him further consequences. So, for many politicians, lying is the course of action, but it's not the most effective because it only brings about further consequences. So I already told you about the church and the 8th commandment, but now we're going to talk about lies and sins. Now there's 2 types of sins and there's 2 types of lies. One of them fits in one category for each. So white lies fit with, you can think of a white lie to a venial sin. A venial sin is minor, but it still counts, as with a white lie. Now a strategic lie is also like a mortal sin. It's a big deal. So you can think of, and I already told you this, white lies is like lying to your mom about chores. Strategic lies is like lying about your spouse, about having an affair. So we know about lies, a white lie and a strategic lie. And we know about mortal sins and venial sins and how they connect to each other. So you may be asking yourself, wouldn't it just be easier to lie than tell the cold hard truth? And no, it's not easier. It's much easier to just tell the cold hard truth. As weird as it sounds, the cold hard truth is much more settling than a simple lie. And I'm going to get to an example of that. But the reason we tell the cold hard truth is because it's all about educating our youth. We want to raise our future children, the future generations of this planet, in an atmosphere that is very comforting, very truthful. We can't be spreading lies to our children. And this is also something that St. John Baptist de La Salle preaches in his 7th meditation. The purpose of the church is to educate and instruct our youth as they grow up. And we can't be doing that if we're lying to them. So we need to start telling the truth so that our children can be raised in a proper atmosphere. Now, in a social aspect, lying is the reason that we have a lot of isms and phobias. Now, you can think of sexism, or racism, or xenophobia, or homophobia. Lying is the reason we have all of those. How, you may be asking? Well, it's through misunderstanding true information, and as it's depicted as false and inaccurate. Think of it this way. Let's say you have a racist neighbor. You can't just simply assume, well, my neighbor's racist because he's a despicable human being. You also have to consider maybe your neighbor was raised in had a bad childhood or something like that. Maybe their parents lied to them when they were a child. So, let's say you're asking yourself, why does my neighbor hate people of this descent? Again, you can't just say they're a terrible human being. You have to be more analytical than that. You have to figure out why. Their parents could have lied to them and told them, oh, I hate these people because they did this. And that might be completely false. But the child believes so. And that goes back to educating our youth. If you educate your youth with false evidence, then they're going to be spreading that evidence. Let's say that kid goes to school and tells everyone, hey, don't like these people, they're very bad. Then that's spreading lies. And unfortunately, lies spread faster than truth does, even though truth is the way to go. So I already told you about youth and social issues. So, let's say you and your friend are going out and you're going to buy a prom dress. If your friend's trying on a nice prom dress, you have to tell them the truth. If your friend asks, how do I look? You can't just lie to them. There's 3 questions, or there's 3 outcomes for when they're trying on a prom dress. You could either say, you don't look good, you look okay, or you look great. Now, let's say your friend tries on the prom dress, and in your head you're thinking, oh gosh, they look terrible. You don't have to tell them you look terrible. You could put it in, more eloquent terms. You could say, I don't like you in that dress, because that's a much more harsh way of saying you look terrible. But it gets your point across, and it's true. So, let's say you told a white lie to them. Let's say you said, you look terrific, when in fact you thought they didn't look terrific. Now, your friend is being led under false pretenses, and they go to prom and they face possible jeering and insulting and teasing, and it's all accountable because of you. You told them a lie, and now they believe that lie. So you're responsible for that. So it would have been just easier to give the cold hard truth and prevented further consequences for them. Because lies are just ways to solve temporary issues, but they're only growing further problems in the future. So if you want to avoid problems for yourself in the future, stop lying. Because lies spread this fast, and because lies are only bringing more consequences for you in the future, it's just a rapid cycle, and it's going to continue. But if we tell the truth, it's going to be a much more calmer atmosphere, and our society can, go further. So I know all of us here are not Christians, not all Catholics, and I know some of us may not even be religious, but lying is an issue that is applicable to everyone. Because in a primitive aspect, the goal of the human race is to survive and to progress. And we cannot do that if we keep lying. If we want our planet to endure, if we want to coexist, and if we want to all have happy lives, we have to stop our lies. There are no gain from our lies. In the long run, we're only causing further problems for ourselves. In retrospect, I'm trying to remember that story I told you at the very beginning, the student council thing. And I'm having a hard time remembering it quite vividly, probably because it never happened. It was made up. It was a lie. Or maybe it wasn't. Now you're probably asking yourself, Bryce, why is Bryce lying to us in his story about why not to lie? Now, I'm trying to make a point here. Again, this lie here that I made, you don't know if it's a lie or not, and I'm not going to tell you until the very end. You're never going to be able to differentiate truth from deceit, and that is the pity of lying. Lying, although it's very strategic, it's also confusing. You're going to have a hard time remembering who you lied to, why you lied to them, for what reasons you lied, what the effects of that lie was. It's just a giant web. It's very complex and very perplexing, and it would just be much more easier to tell the truth. So, I'm going to, out of honesty, tell you that that story I told you was completely made up. It was an anecdote, not a lie. But maybe it would have been easier if I told you a true story than a false story. Because for this entire speech, you've been judging me on what I told you at the very beginning. You've been thinking, wow, Bryce is a liar. When in fact, that was completely false. So for these past 7 minutes or so, you've been thinking that I'm a liar, when in fact, I just made up a story to prove my point. So I hope that you can all ask yourselves, would it not just be easier to tell the truth? Thank you.